In this video, I want to talk about 3 big things that I think every angler should do before they get to the body of water that they are about to fish that will help to make them more successful while they're out there fishing. As a fisherman, I know how anxious we get to just get out there sometimes. Maybe you've worked all week, you get to the weekend and you're like, man, I just can't wait to get out there on the body of water. And sometimes we kind of skip over a few steps that will actually help us to be a lot more successful once we get out to the lake so that we can enjoy our time a little bit more and hopefully catch a lot more bass. I know that that is something that I absolutely want to do. Now, before I get into those 3 steps, I do want to let you guys know that I am running a sale on the website until the end of this month, where if you buy 1 sun shirt, you get the second one for 50% off. It's 2 sun shirts for about $81. I'm going to leave a link down below in the description. These are USA made sun shirts. This is my apparel company, so it is one of the best ways to help support this channel. All right, let's get into the 3 big things. Now, the first one is something that I think actually a lot of anglers do. And if you don't, then this is something that you need to start doing anyways. And that is simply look at the weather. This is something very simple. And like I said, I think a lot of anglers already do this, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. But it's very important to understand kind of what is going on in nature, because we are getting ready to go out and catch a bass that is really controlled by a lot of the elements that happen. So understanding the wind direction, a few things that guys may not always look at is that. One is wind direction. We might see that it's windy, but really understanding where that wind is coming from, what that wind might be affecting. Maybe it affects one of your favorite fishing spots because it's pushing a lot of current through that area. Maybe the fish are going to feed up better. Maybe the wind is pushing into a couple of banks that are really good, and so that might make those banks a little bit better. So understanding your wind, understanding if you're pre-frontal, post-frontal, maybe you're in the middle of a front, maybe it's raining, all those little things. Most of the anglers already understand this, so I'm not gonna, like I said, talk about it, but understand what is happening out there before you get to the body of water, because it will also impact the next couple of steps, which is number 2, the thing that this is probably the most important thing that I think you can do is spend time looking at either a lake map or Google Earth or both. I truly believe that there is a trade-off as to how much time you spend when you are looking at a map at home or on Google Earth, as opposed to how much time it saves you out on the water. And I don't have any scientific proof of what that time is or anything like that. I just know, I think that for every 10 minutes you spend at home looking at a map, you probably save yourself an hour out there on the water. And that's literally just that's my opinion. I'm not saying that's fact. I'm just saying that that's something that I have seen a lot. If I spend 10, 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes just looking at a lake map, picking out 5, 6, 7, 8 spots on a map, that really helps me out on the water to save a lot of time, because if I go to an area, I fish it for 15 minutes, I already know where I'm going to go next. Now, something that I think is really important to do when you're looking at a map is don't try to find all the exact same type of places. And what I mean by that, if you go to a lake in the summertime, bass could be anywhere. They could be shallow, they could be deep, they could be everywhere in between. So one thing that I wouldn't suggest is don't just try to mark 8 or 9 main lake points that you want to fish. Try to mark different patterns that you might get on. So maybe you mark 1 or 2 points that look really good, a creek channel swings up next to them. But maybe you're looking at Google Earth and you see, hey, there's a big grass mat that really grows out here. And so mark that grass mat because it looks good. Maybe it has some deeper water that comes close by. And then maybe you find a dirty water creek on another lake map of some sort where you're like, this creek's a little bit dirtier. The fish may stay shallow in there. So that's what I like to do a lot of times. Maybe I mark a riprap bank. Maybe I mark a really deep hump of some sort. What I like to do is pick 5, 6, 7, 8 different type of places, because when you get to the body of water, what I like to do is I will run all of those places. I'll fish the riprap. I'll fish that grass mat. I'll fish that point. I'll fish that dirty water creek. And I can do that all pretty quickly because I'm spending 15, 20, 30 minutes at each little stop. And over the course of a couple of hours, you're going to see a lot of different types of water. And what it does a lot of times is it clues you into what you need to be doing, because you might go to a point and you might catch a lot of fish on a point and you're like, all right, now I need to go back down in my boat, look at a map, whether it's on your phone or maybe you have like a nice Humminbird unit, and pick out more points that are kind of similar to that. Or maybe you find that this dirty water creek has a lot of fish in it. Maybe you can look at Google Earth and find another dirty water creek, or maybe you can just spend time in that creek really like picking it apart and catching every fish in it. So that's the big thing that I suggest. Don't just pick 5, 6, 7, 8 points that are all the same type of stuff. Pick different stuff so that when you start attacking the water, you start seeing a lot, and that helps you just get clue here, clue there, where then you can really expand upon it. So that's step number 2. That's a big one, something that I think is really, really important. Now, tip number 3, this is something that I find myself not doing a lot, but I do find that when I do it, it helps me to be a lot more productive on the water. And that is simply rig up your rods before you go fishing. I know exactly how it is. We get in that boat, we hook the boat up, we drag it to the water. We don't even think about rigging up all of our rods for what we want to do. We're like, I'll just do it out there. Like I still do that all the time. But what I have found is that when I sit it down in my boat, after I've kind of gone through my map, like I just talked about, if I've gone through my map, if I sit there and I just think, you know, I might be able to catch fish this way in this area. And I'm also at this point taking into consideration the weather, because I've already looked up the weather, I've looked up the maps, now I'm rigging up my rods, and it just helps me to like thoroughly think about what I could potentially catch bass on. Now, some of these rods you may already have rigged up, maybe already in the boat, but something that I like to do is also have like what if baits. So what I mean by that is, what if I'm going down the lake and I see bass schooling on top? I want to have a top water, right? So I'm going to make sure I rig up a top water rod, keep it somewhere. Or what if I do get to one of those points and I catch them really good on a deep crankbait? That's great, but maybe I want to have something to follow that up. So maybe I'll rig up a big worm so that I can follow up that deep crankbait with the big worm. So I think that sometimes just sitting down, calming down, and just thinking about your fishing day, even if it's a 3 or 4 or 5 hour time block that you have, I really think that sitting down for a half an hour before you go out on the water will save you a ton of time out there on the water, and it will help you to be more productive. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Some of it was pretty basic. Hopefully you learned a couple of things. And if you did, please subscribe, and I will see you guys tomorrow.